Everyone thinks the gold rush was about opportunity, but tens of thousands died chasing it, and the real cost of gold far higher than anyone admits. James Marshall crouched beside the icy waters of the American River, his hands numb from the January chill. On January 24, 1848, a flash of yellow caught his eye in the muddy mill race at Sutter's Mill. He scooped up the flakes, pounded them flat on a rock, and realized he was holding gold. Marshall and John Sutter tried to keep the discovery quiet, but word slipped out. Laborers deserted the sawmill, and rumors began to ripple through the valleys. By spring, the secret was impossible to contain. The frenzy ignited in San Francisco that May. Sam Brannan, a sharp-eyed merchant, stormed through the city streets waving a vial of gold dust and shouting, "Gold! Gold! Gold from the American River!" He plastered handbills everywhere and printed the headline, "Gold Mine Found," in his newspaper, The Californian. The city emptied overnight. Sailors abandoned ships in the harbor, shopkeepers vanished, and even the mayor joined the stampede north. Brannan's shout echoed across continents. Within weeks, ships from Hawaii, Chile, and Peru packed the docks. Early arrivals grabbed the richest claims, leaving latecomers to fight over scraps. All it took was a single headline and a handful of gold to set off a global obsession. The dream of instant fortune became a fever that no one could stop. In a matter of months, the world's eyes turned to California, and the rush for gold began. 300,000 people surged toward California, each one convinced they could beat the odds. The routes were brutal. Some crossed the continent by wagon, grinding through the endless dust of the California Trail, risking everything in the 40-mile desert. Others boarded ships for a months-long journey around Cape Horn, battered by storms and scurvy. The fastest gambled on the Panama shortcut, sailing to the isthmus, hacking through fever-ridden jungles, then waiting for another ship north. Every path was a test of hunger, exhaustion, and luck. The flow never stopped. By 1850, San Francisco had exploded from a sleepy port of 1,000 to a raw, chaotic city of 25,000. Ships jammed the harbor, abandoned as their crews bolted for the hills. Tents, shacks, and gambling halls sprawled across the mudflats, built faster than anyone could count. The newcomers came from Boston and Baltimore, from Canton and Cornwall, from Chile, Peru, and Australia. Most were young men, anonymous and desperate, all chasing the same impossible dream. But the gold fields offered no welcome. The camps stank of sweat and sewage. Water ran brown with waste. Piles of garbage festered between tents. Food was scarce and outrageously priced. Miners slept on the bare ground, their boots still on, haunted by hunger and fever. The air buzzed with rumors of fortunes made overnight, of men dropping dead at the riverbank, of claims stolen in the dark. The promise of instant wealth drew them in, but the reality was filth, sickness, and 1,000 strangers fighting for the same handful of dust. Death traveled with the gold seekers, silent and unrelenting. In those crowded camps and muddy tent cities, disease became the real killer. Cholera swept through the gold fields in 1849, carried by contaminated water and the press of desperate bodies. Miners woke with cramps and fever, and by nightfall, many were gone. Sacramento lost 1,000 people in just 3 weeks. Doctors knew little about stopping the spread. They burned barrels of tar in the streets, hoping smoke would chase away the sickness. But the dead kept coming. Smallpox followed, leaving its mark across the foothills. In some camps, survivors buried friends in shallow graves, too weak to dig deeper. The odds were brutal. For every 12 fortune seekers who reached California, one would never leave. That is more than 20,000 dead, most from disease, not violence. Starvation and scurvy claimed more. As supply wagons failed and prices soared, a bag of flour could cost a week's wages, and spoiled food brought fever and dysentery. Medical historians describe scenes of chaos, men collapsing at riverbanks, bodies stacked outside makeshift hospitals, burial parties working through the night. Death did not always come from sickness. The work itself was deadly. In 1854, a steam boiler exploded at a Grass Valley mine, hurling iron and rock through the air. 7 men died in an instant, their bodies shattered by the blast. Collapsing shafts and falling rocks killed hundreds more each year. The goldfields became a graveyard built on broken dreams, all for gold, and yet most never struck it rich. Violence became a fact of daily life as the gold camps grew. California's original inhabitants paid the highest price. In 1848, Native Americans numbered around 150,000. Within a generation, that number would collapse to less than 20,000. Historian Benjamin Madley counts more than 9,400 killed in over 370 massacres. Whole villages were wiped out, often with state funds. The state legislature paid out over $1 million to militias for so-called Indian expenses, bounties for scalps and heads, receipts filed like business invoices. On May 15, 1850, United States-backed militia descended on Bloody Island, a small patch of land in Clear Lake. They massacred over 60 Pomo men, women, and children in retaliation for a miner's death. Survivors fled into the water, hunted down as they tried to escape. It was only one of hundreds of such attacks across the Sierra foothills and valleys. Mob justice ruled the goldfields. Vigilante committees and angry crowds replaced courts. In Downeyville in July 1851, a young Mexican woman named Josefa Segovia was accused of killing a miner who forced his way into her home. The mob gave her no real trial. By afternoon, she was hanged from a bridge while hundreds cheered. Her body was left swinging as a warning. Newspapers called it frontier justice. For many, it was simply murder. The violence did not stop with native people or outsiders. Claim disputes turned deadly among miners themselves, with murders, poisonings, and lynchings. Greed and suspicion made every stranger a possible enemy. The dream of fortune twisted into a nightmare. Gold built California, but it demanded blood, disease, and death, and most people never knew the real cost. Across the Sierra foothills, abandoned dreams litter the land. For every story of a lucky strike, 100 ended in ruin. Less than 1% of fortune seekers actually found wealth. The rest left behind empty pockets and broken towns. Body once roared with 10,000 voices, with miners, gamblers, and merchants all chasing hope. By 1942, only wind and dust remained. Chinese camp, once home to 5,000, faded after the gold was gone, its streets swallowed by weeds. Merchants who sold supplies, shovels, boots, and whiskey grew rich as miners went bankrupt. The promise of easy riches turned to hollow silence. Some towns never recovered or vanished completely. The gold rush carved scars into California's map, not just in fortunes lost, but in the bones of forgotten settlements. In the rush to rip gold from the earth, miners unleashed forces they could never control. Hydraulic mining blasted entire hillsides into rivers, washing away forests and burying valleys under an avalanche of waste. The U.S. Geological Survey calculates that more than 1.2 billion cubic yards of debris, enough to fill a line of dump trucks stretching around the world, choked California's waterways. But the real poison ran deeper. To separate gold from gravel, miners poured mercury by the barrel into sluice boxes. Over 370 tons of mercury vanished into the soil and streams. That mercury still lingers, winding through rivers like the Yuba and the Bear, tainting fish and drinking water generations later. Some scars are permanent. Mormon Island, once a bustling town of miners and families, now lies submerged beneath Folsom Lake, erased by the very industry that built it. The promise of gold left behind a toxic legacy, one that seeps through California's land and water to this day. Gold built California. It demanded blood, disease, and death. Most people never knew the real cost. Today, the scars are still visible in the land and in the stories we choose to forget. Subscribe for more dark history you won't learn in school.